The Georgia Secretary of State's office finally admits that there were mistakes and errors in the 2020 election in Fulton County. In an email exchange with college professor and concerned citizen Joe Rossi of Georgia, a counsel for Georgia Secretary of State Brad Raffensperger named Ryan Germany finally responded to the errors outlined in a recent complaint to the State Board of Elections regarding over 17,000 ballots remaining unaccounted for, essentially, in the 2020 election. Germany saying, quote, "As part of the allegations that you made, our investigators looked at the alleged violations and found that Fulton did make mistakes in their audit counting reporting. Those are what have been referred to the Attorney General's office." Now, the office of Governor Brian Kemp also recently acknowledged the discrepancy, forwarding it to the state election board for further investigation. However, Raffensperger, who is technically responsible, right, for elections in Georgia as Secretary of State, continues to remain hands-off, though their investigators did find errors and mistakes. Now, in an email addressed to Raffensperger and his Chief Operating Officer, Gabriel Sterling, on July 24th, Rossi noted, quote, "If your team has time to fly to D.C. and meet before the January 6th committee, you should have time to meet with a citizen of Georgia that has investigated the November 3rd, 2020 election and has been supported by the governor's team as being factual. I'm confident if we meet, you can save the governor's office and the SEB a lot of time by answering our questions." I happen to agree with that. Now, joining me now to break this down further is independent journalist Addie Adds, who's also been closely tracking the situation in Fulton County, Georgia, along with me. Welcome, Addie.
Thank you, Miss Emerald. Thanks for having me on the show.
It's good to see you. Now, I do want to let our viewers know that you have a very detailed and concise breakdown of this information on your Substack that was discovered in that complaint filed by Joe Rossi and another independent investigator and journalist, Kevin Machla. You pretty much walk step by step what is the most recent development. So tell us, Addie, where do we currently stand on these votes in question? There's no tabulator tape for these votes. There was a problem in the December 3rd and 4th recount regarding these votes. So where are we now in these investigations? The governor's office has forwarded it. And why does it even matter to continue to get to the bottom of it?
Yeah, so this is really big. We're kind of in the second act here. Emerald and I did a Batches Loaded report story the week of the primary election, which kind of made some waves. So this is really big. For people who have been up on it, it may not be, at least on the surface, surprising because, you know, we didn't know that there was something amiss in that 2020 election. But this is the first time that the Secretary of State has went on record saying that mistakes were made. Now, whether those mistakes were purposeful or accidental, they have yet to say. But as Emerald mentioned, it has been referred to the Attorney General Chris Carr's office. And a couple more details I wanted to add pertaining to the Attorney General. The Assistant Attorney General actually made a call to lawyer for Mr. Rossi, Jack James, a few weeks after Kemp's letter on November 17th. And Jack actually had a quote about that. He said, "The purpose of her call was apparently to convince me that the SOS, Secretary of State, has no responsibility for the errors exposed in Fulton County. I said Mr. Rossi and I believe the Secretary of State has the ultimate responsibility. Thus, we disagree on the issue of responsibility." And according to the Georgia Constitution, 21-2-50 is the code. The Secretary of State is the state's chief election official. So that's coming from the assistant AG, and it's really going directly against what it says in the Peach State's Constitution. But additionally, we had people from around Georgia opining on this development, including Garland Favorito, Buckhead City Committee CEO Bill White, Georgia immigration law activist D.A. King, and Republican chairwoman of DeKalb County, Marcy McCarthy. So it has been, I think, picking up some steam, and I'm hoping that people like Emerald who are covering it get this out there into the public a little bit more, because I think the next thing is we're waiting for some sort of statement from Raffensperger.
Yeah, so is sort of what I want to get to the next thing, because one thing I've noticed in covering Georgia, and it's not just Fulton County that you're seeing discrepancies that are being acknowledged, maybe not explicitly like in this case with Fulton County, but there's a circular process going on, right? So the state elections board were already aware, but then Governor Kemp's made aware. Joe just doesn't go away, Joe Rossi. And so the governor's office finally forwards the matter on to the SEB for investigation. And then they say they keep saying they're not responsible. Brad Raffensperger says he's not responsible. Governor Kemp says he's not responsible. So everybody keeps saying, I'm not responsible. I'm not responsible. I'm passing the buck. So at what point is anything really truly going to be investigated and an answer out of it? Because so far, I mean, it has been investigated, and while they say they resolved it, they've never produced tabulator tapes for over 17,000 ballots, which would verify that they are real, that these are real votes. So, I mean, where do we go, Addie?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a great question, Emerald. I really think it reminds me of the Epstein-Maxwell saga, which I was covering in New York when she was on trial. I contended at the end of the trial with Inner City Press that it's really going to be up to the citizens of the United States to put this on our backs by ourselves without help from the state. And I think it's a similar situation here with this election integrity movement that I think is really nationwide, and Georgia obviously spearheaded by Joe Rossi. And you mentioned, it's not just in Fulton. Cherokee County and Pickens County are really the hot counties right now with regards to election audits. Yeah. And particularly in Cherokee County, we had this lawyer, Ann Brumbaugh, come up right before the vote to conduct an audit and make some statements which some people perceived as threats. So that's the story I'm actually going to be following up on more this week. But this is where the court of public opinion, I think, has the most power in this situation. It's just a matter, I think, Emerald, of people like us getting the word out, and the citizens too.
I think in this case, particularly when it comes to Joe Rossi and this particular discrepancy of Fulton County, it's sort of the squeaky wheel. They keep hoping it'll go away, but it doesn't, and it does eventually force the hand. And as you mentioned, Cherokee and Pickens County, the elections board have actually tried to do audits, and they're getting pushback from attorneys in those counties to try to stop this from happening. So we keep our eyes on Georgia. Addie, thank you for your reporting. I'll remind our viewers they can go over to your Substack and get all the details. You put the emails there, the exchanges, and if they go back to your Batch 1 Substack, you can also see the specific details of the discrepancy that we're talking about laid out there for you with FOIA documents that were released to Joe Rossi and Kevin Machla for further review. So thank you, Addie. Thanks for the good reporting.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you, Emerald. And it's all unredacted, so go check it out, people.